Adrian,
Jaime.
how do you keep up with AI? Everything is moving so fast. You are clearly investing on it. How do you separate, noise from hype and actual opportunities?
Yeah, I guess that's really a great question. I'm also asking that myself every single day, obviously. I guess fundamentally, I do look at AI business models very much the same way I do look at any other business model. So for me, AI is just an enabling technology that helps you to create new business models and also new categories of businesses. But still, what makes a good business has the same ingredients as in any other business, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to have a scalable business model. You want to be able to create a clear moat, defensibility. You want to be able also to, create the data flywheel that then allows you to go beyond and create more moat. Mm-hmm. You want everything to be very scalable, obviously. And after all, you want to focus on creating massive customer value.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you clearly had a very famous start with DeinDeal. That was a clear, e-commerce field, but you have been moving across the board. And that's what you're doing also today. How do you take up on that challenge of basically becoming an expert in each field to make an assessment? What's your personal process?
Well, I wouldn't consider myself being an expert in all those fields, but I try to focus on finding the right experts to talk to and then use them to also get myself up to speed and learn. And I guess learning about new things is also what really drives me, and building. So I do look out for other people who are more knowledgeable in a space and then help me to understand that new space and also help me to understand how technology is going to affect that space. And that is also pretty much what led me to, come to AI machine learning from e-commerce. So I was a bit bored running e-commerce only, and I was like, okay, I need to do something where I can still learn every single day. And I ended up building a venture studio that builds out machine learning companies in very different fields, right? From healthcare to biotech to consumer, but also manufacturing. And I guess I really enjoy learning things every single day, and also figuring out how this massively powerful technology, machine learning, AI, will help to build new businesses, new business models, but also even new markets.
Mm-hmm. And now we're bringing you back to e-commerce a little bit with looks. How can we make it fun, and so that you bring the fun to it that you had at the beginning?
I guess what generative AI and AI in general has as an opportunity for e-commerce is hyper personalization, right? So all of a sudden you can start to personalize experiences, which I believe in consumer businesses are really key. Mm-hmm. And machine learning now gives us the opportunity to learn from you as a customer, what you like, what you don't like, and then personalize your whole experience end to end in a way that you really get addicted to the service. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest potential probably. Then of course there's other fields where generative AI is going to affect e-commerce businesses in the way things are created. Mm-hmm. So you can also think of content creation as one of the most costly factors for e-commerce players. Because there's lots of content you need to create, and back in the days you had to employ writers and photoshoppers who would and photographers, videographers even, to come up with all the content. And now all of a sudden a lot of that can be done in a very automated fashion that brings down the costs and also increases of course the kind of numbers of SKUs you can offer to the customer.
Yeah, and I think that if we mix these two components of content and hyper personalization, and we bring them together, then we are looking at an opportunity to create content for the user and potentially with the user. And I'm pretty sure you had this problem back in the days with DeinDeal. There is a high abandonment rate on the e-commerce shops in general, and usually one of the ways to address this is with more content to help get the user to cross a line. And I think that's one of the exciting areas of generative AI, to place the user in the content, so to say. But of course, it could also be done in a very weird way, right? You don't want it to be too intrusive to the user. And I imagine these topics were things that you also looked at back then, right? How do we create an experience that is still somehow personal, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, what you refer to, I would call social shopping, right? Which I do believe is going to be the future of e-commerce. And you're right, back in the days when I run our e-commerce company, there was a bit of personalization that could be done, mainly on the offering level, you could say on the discovery level, right? So whenever you had a certain profile of a group of customers, you'd know, okay, this is the kind of offerings we now want to send to them. And you would group them. Sometimes this even happens still in a rather manual fashion, talking of CRM and grouping the right kind of people. But then increasingly, of course, you had machine learning algorithms doing that for you. So we would know what is the kind of offering we should send you on Monday, and when should we send it to you? Should we send it to you in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening? What was your preferred time to go online? And all these things, of course, had a big impact on the results. So to say, the sales, right? So optimizing the kind of shelf space that you have, also when a customer lands on your page, is quite significant, because the customer either goes into the rabbit hole and figures out the right kind of products they want to buy, or they don't find anything and then they're also gone. Attention span is quite low, and so if you don't catch the interest of a person very early on, it's going to be a lost lead.
Yeah, and I could imagine that in the same way that you are grouping people and targeting, what that personalization to this group now, with AI, basically you can do it at an individual level. And I think that's where it can be really a game changer, that, as you say, it's not only for the sake of selling something, but to get the user to what they would be searching for just faster, and moving away from kind of like this shelf concept where you have to figure out where is it what you want to buy, but that you are somehow taken directly to it. And I could imagine that at this point there will also be a churn level relatively significant, right? That where the user faces a catalog of products, and from that point into bringing it into the cart, I would imagine that's also a tough point for the company, right?
Yeah, for me, there's always two different alleys when I think about the customer shopping experience. One is search, and one is discovery. In search, you want to help your customer to find the exact right kind of product that the person is looking for. And you want to help him or her in actually understanding the needs and what the person is looking for, and then direct the customer to the right kind of assortment, so to say. In discovery, it's more like trying to figure out what the customer might not be aware of yet, but would also then like if they see it. And so I guess on both angles, machine learning, AI, is going to have a tremendous effect.
Yeah, and especially when I think that's quite important, that distinction of search and discovery. And especially on search, that may be, from my point of view, the first breakthrough potentially. It's the to me is the low-hanging fruit of generative AI from the consumer point of view, because right now we're limited to a search bar, to filters, to scrolling, and if somehow we can just reduce the time from inspiration to finding, that would be quite interesting. And I think ChatGPT has done, it's a great example of how people prefer to have, you know, that interface than Google or Wikipedia, or it's reducing that time, what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think interface is the exact right kind of keyword for that. You know, the way the human brain works, and then how it's translated in actually, you know, typing and you know, browsing somewhere. There's still a big gap in between, and the more natural this interaction gets, the better also the customer experience is. And I guess that's also why, you know, referring to ChatGPT, of course, this conversational way is a more natural way, actually, how humans interact and how you're looking for something. So you could also say, like, the old ancient way, you know, going to a shop and having a conversation with the salesperson in the shop. The salesperson then trying to figure out more about your interests and your desires, then coming up with suggestions. Actually, that also makes it very personal, and the client feels understood, feels treated well. That is something that now will be possible also in an online experience, and that's also why I call it a more social experience, because it's really more down to this kind of how humans function on a very basic level, rather than just going there and clicking on some things.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it seems like as if we're going back to basics, because what you described, the conversational aspect of it 100% makes sense. What we're trying to do is to replicate the try-on aspect. So instead of you just seeing pictures of products, you directly see it on yourself, as if you would go to a store and trying it on, and make a decision by interchanging those items on you. And you know, it's more natural. It's really more natural than just scrolling at what we have. What do you think prompting is gonna evolve to? Because prompting is not necessarily natural, I would say.
Yeah, I guess, you know, we're still at the very early stage, right? So there's a lot of developments going on, and a lot of things that today still require a lot of manual work will be automated more and more. And I really guess it also is down to personal preferences, right? So I know people whose preference is they want to see a lot of different varieties of something, and then being able to actually choose from there. My personal style is more like, I love going into a store where there's a very well done selection of things that match my style and I like, and then I can just pick from a limited variety of things. I don't need to see everything. I also don't want to take the time to go through all of that. But I guess this is really, again, very personal. And the cool thing about AI will be that every style or every kind of preference can now be matched with an appropriate kind of offering.
Yeah, and I think also this curation, people will be able to do it, I think, more easily, because now you're not going to be limited to the products that you have or the products that you're seeing, because you're going to be able to create the products that you have in mind. I'm expecting a whole new generation of fashion AI creators to pop up, and to be honest, that get really to the details of prompting out their crazy dreams about fashion, and then just either themselves or someone else bringing them to reality, and then that enables a new creation experience, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of that as a personal shopping assistant, right? Yeah. Which not only helps you with the curation, but then even goes this one step further, where you can actually do your own creations and then get them on demand. That is, of course, a whole next level of hyper personalization.
Yeah, I mean, and that has been reserved for only a set of people that could afford that experience. So, but that on the topic of hyper personalization, on getting items on demand, what do you see there? Is this something that you have seen? Because it's not a new concept, really. It has been there for some time. What's the potential that you see in that specific field?
Yeah, I guess there are two layers to that. First is the creation of new things, that obviously now using generative AI is quite powerful, and you don't need someone to first draw it and scribble it and then show it to you, but you can basically use the interface to kind of come up with new creations and then say, okay, this is actually something I like. And then the other layer, of course, is the production and shipment in the back end. That, of course, still need to be handled, and I guess that's also where the industry currently is catching up with more on-demand rather than the mass production. Or you can also think of these concepts that you already have today, where you have pre-made things, but you can still customize them based on your personal preferences. And I just think we're going to see a lot more of these kind of concepts.
Yeah, I think we should, because if you think of what you described a second ago, the production component of it, most of what is produced is not sold and is not worn, and it goes straight to the landfill, and companies are still profitable. It's not something that is holding them back, so maybe that's that takes it to the next level. Let's produce what people are gonna buy, and offering that hyper personal experience. If you take the time to produce, to kind of design your own item, I guess the likelihood that you buy it are higher, but also that you wear it are higher. So I think that's probably one of the massive problems of the industry right now.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, like being in this space and selling a lot of fashion in my previous company, I think even though it was kind of our model, to get all this overstock and then sell it, it was still one of the things that made me really sad in realizing how much of overstock and how much of waste actually is produced, and how much of inefficiency is in that system. And knowing about the constraints on resources and knowing about the footprint of these kind of things, that really still makes me sad in realizing how much waste is created. And yes, I guess there is a huge advantage if you go to a more on-demand kind of production level also of these goods.
Yeah, but that's funny though. I mean, I think you were almost part of the solution, I would say, because you were taking that, and taking it, trying to bring it back to the consumer instead of just pushing it to the landfill, which is what could have happened. I think the margins allow for that to happen, which is terribly sad. But I think there is also a big part of it on the consumer's hand, on saying, maybe I don't need to go to Shein and buy a whole new set of clothes just because they're trending. And at some point that will trickle down into the industry potentially, and just, is aiming for targeted production instead of just overproduction. But I think that will take some time, right? I mean, usually the impact of the consumer in the brands is something that takes a little bit longer.
I guess we're going to see whole new generations of customers who also behave very differently. The current generations of customers, of course, are still largely influenced by these mass retailers, and as you mentioned, companies like Shein, who produce massive quantities, and they sell things at so low prices that it almost doesn't matter. So people just buy and buy and buy and keep adding stuff to their wardrobe that they probably might never even wear. And I think that's not that's not how the future should look like. And I also hope that's not how my kids will be developing as shoppers personalities. And I do believe that these kind of technologies that we're discussing are also able to even shape consumer behavior in the future. So I think we are able to shift consumer behavior from let's say less sustainable to a more sustainable way in shopping and thinking about this.
Yeah, and I think bringing it back to the word that we used at the beginning of an interface, I think that's really what's needed, because this generation, yeah, they're buying a lot on Shein, they buy a lot on fast fashion, but they care about the planet and they care about their impact on the planet. And you're probably going to see more closely that as your kids grow up. But I think it's just a matter of allowing them, giving them the tools so they can, make those better decisions, because otherwise they are still in that dichotomy of like, how do I battle, how do I fulfill my values, but I'm still on trend, I'm still part of my social group, I'm still, it's that challenge I think that they will have.
Yeah, I guess it's all about giving them the tools to make better decisions, and maybe also giving them some nudges in the right directions of, okay, how can you reuse your wardrobe, or how can you also have others have access to your wardrobe?
Yeah.
So these are kind of new concepts in a circular economy way that I do believe we're gonna see more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fact. I've actually brought a fact for you from your country, from Switzerland. It's actually one of the countries that uses the least of the wardrobe. I think it's at below 20%.
Really?
Yeah, I was also surprised. I mean, generally Europe is quite low, always around 20%. But I think that's really the key of it. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you get. It doesn't matter if you keep on buying. People are just not using it. And if we look at the top 4 fashion, fast fashion brands, they are producing 80,000 items a month. There is no way that someone is going to be able to keep up with using what they have, which is already complex, and also adding in more stuff that they're gonna add it. I mean, there's no way that we'll just stop buying new from one day to the next. It's just about how do we make it easier for that what you described to happen. Exchanging, swapping, reselling, renting, which to be honest has not gone as mainstream as we would have liked at this point. Even though in our interviews when we talk to Gen Zers, some of them they say they don't buy in fast fashion anymore.
Wow.
They just try to buy secondhand.
Yeah.
And they go through that effort because it's not easy to buy secondhand. It's fun for a lot of people, but I think that gives us a glimpse of hope, I would say. Is there any other thing that you're looking at the generative AI space that you find that either could be a complete game changer for e-commerce or generally that you're particularly interested in?
I mean, in general, at the moment, it's hard to foresee what will come up. And I personally do believe that what we're seeing in generative AI right now is just 1% of what's going to be possible. So we're really at day 1 of generative AI. But yeah, I do believe it's going to have a tremendous impact on how people consume, but also how products are offered and how products are even created. Mm-hmm. So I think the industry is just about to understand how to also make use of this tremendous potential, and of course there's a lot of potential also outside e-commerce. Yeah, but I do believe that the future of e-commerce will be in a sort of social commerce way, maybe even involving more interactions between people, about what to choose, about what to wear. Again, also about swapping wardrobe and sharing. Don't need to own anything your own, but you can also use stuff that your friends have in your wardrobe, and making or giving access to that is gonna be a huge game changer.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that we just need to make that easier. We need to have the right interface to make that happen at a scale that goes beyond the mega fans, the super, the fashion aficionados that will go all the way to spending hours and creating what it needs to be created today, so that it enables that.
What about if you could basically choose your outfits for the next couple days, and then you get what you don't have shipped, but there's also a way to then ship it back, so you don't keep it. So I personally, I don't like to own things, because I do think the more things you own, the more cluttered your brain is, and the more time you need to spend thinking about what you own. So I personally would love to be able to have this kind of on-demand experience, and have a selection of things I can wear in the next 1 or 2 weeks, and then have a way to also ship it back, and get some new things, even though I'm a big fan of black t-shirts apparently, so might not change that much, but still I would love that idea.
Yeah, well, you just get probably a different cut of a black t-shirt. But yeah, I think, to be honest, I would also like in my case, I would like to, I'm also not a big fan of owning stuff, but I still like to be on trend. I feel like probably sometimes here in the AI campus, I feel like a bit of an outsider sometimes, because fashion, it boosts me, it makes me, it powers me somehow, but it's a heavy psychological burden of thinking, okay, I need to, suddenly I don't have what's in, and it sounds very vain when I say it out loud, but it's something that
it's about your personality, and you use that to amplify your personality. And I guess that's again about personal taste, and the more AI can actually figure that out, the better it can also help you in coming up with suggestions, but also at the same time nudge you in the right direction, right, and help you to adopt a more sustainable lifestyle while still pursuing your expression goals, or self-expression, and helping you to adopt that.
Yeah, and I think that we just need help on that. There are just too many options in our closet. I'm pretty sure we can, unlock more of it. We just need, it's just too many combinations. There are on average 150 pieces in a wardrobe. Combining all of those is just impossible for a human, but AI, I think, could do it. A machine should be fine with that calculation. Adrian, to wrap it up, any final bets, any crazy generative AI bet or idea that has crossed your mind, either on this field, also on another one?
Well, I am very excited about machine learning, generative AI in the bio space, especially in the protein space. And proteins can be used to build new kinds of materials that previously were only possible using oil-based, petrochemical-based products. And I do believe that even in clothing, fashion, it will open doors for much more sustainable, maybe even biodegradable clothing that is not going to end up as landfill, and thus helps us to make the planet more sustainable.
Yeah, that would be cool to see, to be honest. And yeah, Adrian, thank you so much for your time. I think it has been a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
It was, I mean, I am, of course, extremely happy and honored to be on this mission with you to build a better e-commerce. So, yeah.
So am I.
Amazing. So
good luck for all of us.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Jaime.
Very good.